Today I want to address a fairly epic battle that happens inside of all of us. And it's this idea of understanding when something we're working on is good enough to go, ready to release and ship and put out to the world, versus it's not there yet, and I need to make sure this is my very best work. I need to make sure it's a perfect reflection of the quality of and character of the person that I want to demonstrate to the world. Very difficult battle to win, because if you're a perfectionist, if you really, really care about the image you portray and that you put your best foot forward, which most of us are, then you may never leave this section of doing your very best and perfecting the thing that you're working on, and it never is good enough. And if that's the case, then you never will actually ship or release or produce the final product for the rest of the world to consume. At the same time, though, there's this other side of the coin that says, well, if I release something that's kind of half-assed or it's not really all that great, and people see that and they see it as a reflection of me, then I'm seen as somebody with lower quality work, with a lower standard. How is that going to impact my reputation in the future? Very difficult, because you don't want to really overdo it one way or the other. And I want to kind of shine some light on this and help you work through it, because we all need to be able to work through this. So let's look at it as a timeline. So today, now, this moment in time, you're currently working on something, and ideally you've set a due date for when this project, this thing that you're working on, this goal that you have is due. And you need to be able to sign off saying, I accomplished this thing. Now, it might be a week away or a month or a year away, depending on how big these things are that you're working on. But the first thing that you control is the due date. And I'm going to assume that your due dates are not very flexible if it's important stuff like a book launch or a project you're working on at work, or who knows what it is. Usually very significant things in our lives don't have a flexible due date. If we say it's due on this date, it's got to be done. So once we decide that, then we do our very best between now and then. That's all we can control, is every single moment that I'm going to be spending time on this project, when I'm not detached doing time with my family or whatever, then every single free moment I have is going to be spent executing to the best of my ability to make sure that when I hit this due date, I know I've done everything possible to make it awesome. However, that's a ticking clock, and eventually it's going to hit zero. And you want to rest assured that when you reach that due date, that you can say with confidence that yes, indeed, it's good enough. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, doesn't mean there's not going to be problems. In fact, if you set aggressive enough due dates and deadlines, then there'll probably be lots of problems and lots of things to fix and go back and rework. But that's okay, because if you did your very best authentically and you can't question yourself, you know that beyond a shadow of a doubt you poured yourself into this project, then that's all you can do, and that's awesome. So then the due date hits. That's just a new now. That's just a current moment where you go back and you fix things that at the time were good enough, now are no longer good enough. And you have a new date where it's going to be version 2, problems corrected that I wasn't aware of before my first due date. I'm aware of them now. And so next step is to do my very best to correct them and to keep moving forward. And that's really how life works. That's how projects work. That's how companies get built. That's how successful families evolve and grow and grow together. But it's just the cycle of nows, due dates, doing your very best in the moment, and then reaching a point where you say this is good enough. It's so much easier to say this is good enough. Whatever I'm giving you right now is good enough if you know that you gave it your all, every single moment that you spent on that project. And I think that's where a lot of us cheat ourselves. We make excuses because we don't pour ourselves 100% into quality and doing the best of our ability at all moments during those times. None of us are perfect at this, but we can work on getting better at maximizing those times. So really, the ultimate message here that I want to send is that if you want to increase your results, if you want to work your way up the ladder or get more exciting results, make more money, have a bigger contact list, I don't know what it is for you, sell more books, sell more audio programs. If you want an increase in those results, then your ultimate goal is to increase your due dates, to create a higher demand on yourself so that the time you spent focused giving your all to that project is happening more often. These due dates are happening on a more frequent basis. It's just like when you exercise at the gym. The more demand you put on your muscle, the harder you work your body, the more it will grow and respond to the demand you're placing on it. And you become a stronger, more resilient person because of it. So stronger, more aggressive, more intense due dates create a stronger, more intense, aggressive person producing more and more results, and this naturally increases over time. And it's an amazing cycle to get into, because you start realizing how much more capable of things that you are than you probably realized when you first began this journey. You're tapping into huge levels of potential that you maybe even didn't believe were possible, because you're putting so much demand on yourself. And you know, don't worry about burning out. Just try this. Try setting more aggressive due dates and pouring yourself into that timeline between now and good enough, and see where it takes you. If you need to readjust your strategy, you can do it later. But, you know, if anything else, after watching this video, make your timeline shorter and see what happens. And if you're planning something 2 months from now and it's not so unrealistic to make it a month instead, go for it and see what happens. So what if half the things go wrong and you have to rework them? As long as you gave it your all, people are going to understand. You can always use use your ability to correct problems and just show people that you're here to stick to do it, whatever it is you set out to do in the first place. And if it takes you a little bit longer and you go back and fix it, so be it. You're the kind of person that's going to make it happen. So I hope this helps you, and hope this whole idea of putting that demand on yourself, and then realizing that at the point of your due date that it is good enough, and you move on, that it will help you in the long run. So I hope this helps you. We'll talk to you soon.